Hello and good evening, Composition 1. Today is our last content class before we do exam review next week, and then of course we write the exam. There's a lot of things to talk about today. First of all, I'm going to give you a small pep talk. This class has sent more emails to me per student than any other class. I'm not sure exactly why that is, but it may be because writing is tough, and I usually start the course off every semester by trying to encourage people to be interested in writing and enjoy writing and find ways of making it more, valuable to yourself, like having a positive attitude about it. Because, I've sat down many times in my life with an assignment and a certain amount of hours left and pushed myself to do it. And the process is usually quite painful, no matter what level you're at, but the end product can be quite rewarding. Now, in some cases, the end product is not rewarding and you don't get the grade that you want, and you make mistakes or you're not careful, and that happens. And you have to learn from that, and you have to try and be careful, and you have to proofread, and you have to check the instructions carefully. So, no, you can't resubmit an assignment that you've already done. The assignments that you've gotten back and the feedback that you've gotten is finished. You can't resubmit an assignment. Those assignments are recorded and there's no way to change anything that's been done. However, you should take heart that none of the grades were bad. The lowest grade that anybody got was a C, and that's not normally the case. Some students get lower grades than that. This semester there have not been any, and it's not worth a whole lot of your grade. The graded assignment, the first one, was worth 10%. So the difference between a B minus and a C plus is less than 1%. At the end of the semester, with the relaxed grading policy, there's a 1 in 20 chance that you're on the line between a B and an A, and that affects your grade, but it's very unlikely that it will. So when I calculate your grades, I'll add everything together, and that 0.5% that you lost was not going to be significant. So you can totally go from getting a C on your first assignment to getting an A plus in the class. Nobody needs to be upset or concerned about that. Even back home in Canada, where we publish the median averages, so professors that are too generous, you can just see that that professor gave everybody an A, so that A in your class is relatively less valuable than a class where the average score was 70% and you got an 85. You're 15% above the average student. None of that is the case in Korea, so you don't have to be concerned. Everyone is aware of how hard it's been to go through this whole process of listening to me and reading my instructions and trying to do your assignments. And I have to say, this particular class, Composition 1, I only have one writing class this semester. You have been great, and there have been a lot of emails, there have been a lot of questions and a lot of concern, which is all fine, but some of you need to not overthink things too much, and you do have to be tough. You have to be resilient. When you publish something, people are always going to say negative things, no matter how great you are. I don't know what a great example would be of a person who has to deal with that, but even the best writers, even the world famous ones who get Nobel Prizes, there's always critics. There's always people and they have to ignore them. And it's just like me doing my YouTube videos. There's always going to be somebody who thinks I could have done better, or something I said was a mistake, or that I'm not doing it right. But you can't listen to all the voices. So I'm trying to give you good, positive feedback, and what you need to do is take the constructive things that I said, like, for instance, your paper wasn't long enough and you didn't understand double spacing. I think one student knows who I'm talking to, but there was more than one. And just make the correction and then you'll get a higher grade on your second assignment, which is what we should talk about now. I will be uploading several files over the weekend to prepare you for the exam. So let's talk about this one first. We have to do one more graded assignment. I need one more assignment from you that I need to check. It's going to take me a couple weeks to go through it, so I need you to complete. You have one more week to get this done. As I told you before, if you were listening carefully to my previous video lectures, we did talk about problems and challenges, and I asked you, I mentioned it, but I didn't give you details. So next week is June, that would be June 4th. Okay, next Thursday is June 4th. So by midnight, at the end of June 4th, I would like you to submit one more assignment. It's the same idea, the same format. All the instructions apply that applied for the first one. You just have to identify a problem and then propose a way of dealing with that problem. Like I said, if you choose a problem that is too big, you won't be able to provide much advice, or you won't be able to give a good proposal, let alone a solution to it. But if you get specific enough, if you choose a really specific topic and you narrow it down and you describe the problem, and then you describe a way of treating it, of reducing it, of minimizing it, of managing the problem in a better, more constructive way, that's what I want you to do. So it's going to be a relationship between identifying, describing this problem, and then showing how to handle that problem in a way that would be better than perhaps currently or in the past we have. Okay, so that is the assignment. That assignment, the instructions for that assignment, I will make sure to get them to you. Actually, that's the first thing I will do. So tomorrow I'll upload when I do the lecture summary for this video lecture, I will give you the instructions and I'll put the due date for next week. And that's what you need to do. So please follow the instructions and try to take the feedback from the first graded assignment and then apply it to your second one. Okay? So the second assignment, the topic is identify a problem and propose a way of managing and dealing with that problem. Okay? How to effectively deal with that problem. That's the topic. Now, next, so I will be uploading this weekend. I'll be uploading an exam guide which will point to certain things in the textbook that we did or I talked about, which you need to review. And then I will tell you a description, step by step, the 3 parts of the exam and how you need to study and prepare for each one. That is the topic for next week's video lecture. So I will upload the exam guide for you to read, and then next Thursday I will explain it in my video lecture on the board and vocally. Okay? The following week, 2 weeks from now, the Thursday, 2 weeks from this week, that would be June 11th, 2020, at 4 p.m. we are going to have our final exam in room 124. All this information will also be uploaded on the website for you to read. Okay, so don't be concerned if you didn't catch this, but the subtitles, look at the subtitles. If you freeze what I say, you should be able to read what I just said, right? Room 124, College of Humanities, 4 p.m., Thursday, June 11th, 2020. That is our exam. That is a huge room, so you will be spaced out 3 desks apart. You'll be scattered all over the room so that nobody's near each other. You need to bring a mask, and you need to sanitize your hands at the door. You need to sit down, do your exam, and then you need to go home. Don't touch anything. I'm just kidding. Just don't touch your face as much as you know the rules. We're trying to do this in a very safe way. I'm not laughing because it's funny, because it's not. What I want you to do is, I constantly scratch my nose and stuff. This is why I'm laughing. I have a mask on, but if you touch something and then you stick your hand inside your mask and scratch your nose, you're kind of defeating the purpose of a mask. So everybody has to wear a mask. You come to campus, you use your student ID card to get in the door, sanitize your hands. I don't know if we're going to check temperature at the door. We might do that too, because these are all government policies. We have a national university, so we have to follow them. I'll give you all the full updates, but we have the room. We have a huge room, and we have a small number of people, so everybody will be spread out. So read that over, and we'll have one more video lecture, which will kind of pull everything together and tell you the instructions for the exam next week. This week, we're going to skip. We have not skipped any chapters as far as I know. In fact, we've been sometimes splitting chapters in half, so that one week I would do half a chapter and the next week another. But we're going to skip a chapter. I almost never teach chapter 9 anyway. So we're skipping to chapter 10. So if you have your textbook with you, you flip to page 69, which is chapter 10. Just because I think out of all the topics in this textbook, this is one of the most common ways of approaching something in your daily life. We do this constantly. You might not write it down, but you should, because writing sometimes crystallizes things. Sometimes talking about things crystallizes things too. That's actually one of the things that is always helpful for me, is when I'm struggling with my writing. Sometimes I talk to one of my colleagues or students or friends or coworkers or someone in my family, and I talk about what I'm trying to work through in my writing, and then when I say it, I realize what I want to write. It can work the other way too, though. You can write something down. You can have trouble articulating something vocally, orally, and if you write it down and you organize it, some people need that the other way, that they write something down. They're like, oh, that's what I want to say. That's exactly how I want to say it. Once it's written, you might find yourself being one of those people. I normally go the other way, where I like to articulate something vocally, and then that's when I'm ready to write it down and have somebody look at it who I don't even know. So this chapter is chapter 10, and it's called Differences. The reason that I say these things about it being kind of practical for your daily life is that whenever you're looking at a product, it might be people, it might be events, or it might be products, it might be things. Comparison, looking at the differences between something, but comparing something that in general is similar but specifically different is something that's important for your life, because you're going to make decisions, personal decisions about who you decide to do things with, and how you decide to live your life. And like I said, when you're going to buy a product, you have to decide which thing. There's lots of choices sometimes, and you might narrow it down to 2 of them, because we're just going to keep it simple and not talk about a group of things, because that gets very complex. When you narrow it down to 2 items, for example, which they're making essentially the same product, but they have key differences about them. You want to focus on those differences so you can make a choice, right? A very easy example. When we do this, usually we do this in class, and I walk around, and before people do this is not a graded assignment this semester, but normally I would ask you to choose 2 things, and they should be as similar as possible, but with some key differences, like I just said. So for example, a Samsung Galaxy smartphone, whatever current version there is, I lost track because I'm stuck at Apple iPhone 7 at the moment. But the current version of Samsung's smartphone, which runs on the Android system, and Apple's iPhone, and compare those 2. Am I going to make a choice? Well, they're both smartphones. They have some clear similarities. They have lots of similar functions, but and even the design. Samsung actually made the screen for the iPhone. So like they're the other company made the screen for the phone. They're exactly, it's the same company designing the product and using the same technology. But there's subtle differences. Which one has a better phone, right? Phone. Which one has a better camera? Which one has better sound? The design in terms of there's different plugs, adapters, and one is waterproof and one's not waterproof. These are the key differences. They might be kind of small in some respects, but those are the key differences you focus on. And if I don't know, if you are in danger of dropping your phone in some water because of your job or because of your behavior, you're just clumsy and you're just going to drop. It's rainy season in Korea, and you're just going to drop your phone on the ground, and it's going to submerge itself, or you're forgetful, and this happened to me. So this is a real life example. If you're forgetful and you leave your phone in your pocket, and then you decide to go swimming, waterproof might be really important, because that'll just burn out your phone if the water gets inside it. So this is the kind of stuff where you would deal with this almost on a daily basis, where you would have to make these choices. So in this chapter, they're going to ask you, there's some examples, as usual, of paragraphs where they're going to compare two things. Maybe the most important thing when you're doing a comparison is it's almost like there's two topics, right? There's one main idea. The main idea is comparing these two things. But when you start providing support, you're usually supporting both. You might give the edge in the end to one, but you're going to sort of support both as you go along. And in many cases, it's not going to be a clear advantage in all categories for one side. So your paper, your paragraph, or might be several paragraphs, we're working towards that as we finish this class, getting together multiple paragraphs, is that you might have to focus on a point, or you might have to focus on one side and clearly describe one side as advantageous and then the other one having disadvantages. But if you're going to be honest about your appraisal of directly comparing these things and attempt to be more objective, there's probably going to be advantages for both sides. And in the end, you're going to have to add them up and emphasize which points are more important, and that would make your decision, that would influence your decision overall about which side you would choose, right? But if the Samsung phone is waterproof and the iPhone is not, but the Samsung phone is more expensive, and I don't care about that waterproof aspect because I've never dropped my phone in water in my life. As I said, that's not my case. But if you've never dropped your phone in water and you're not concerned about the phone being waterproof, you're more concerned about paying an extra Shimanwon. And those of you who are an international audience, that's 100,000 Korean won, which is, it's about 80 to 90 American dollars roughly, depending on how the exchange rate goes. If that's important to you, saving $100 or around that, then you're going to say, screw you're just going to say, I don't care about the waterproof aspect. I'm just going to save the money. That's what the logical choice would be. So at the end of your paragraph, or at the end of your paragraphs, you're going to have to come to a conclusion, and you're going to have to, if you're doing something where there's different advantages for each side, you're going to have to get to a decision at the end. If you say they're roughly equal, that's fine, but that doesn't help anybody make a decision. So it's not a good way, it's never a good way to construct, especially an academic essay. But in general, if you just say an article and say, well, the iPhone is good in some ways and bad in others. And the Samsung Galaxy is good in some ways and bad in others. And ultimately, it doesn't matter. They're roughly equal. Thank you for reading my article. I somehow doubt that would be that attractive to most people. They're looking for you to weigh in on the subject and give some advice. And that advice should be, well, here's the information, here's my analysis, and this is my conclusion, that the Samsung Galaxy is a superior phone for the money. Something like that, okay? So that's just an example. That's what the chapter does, is it gives you words for comparison, right? Especially if you're comparing. I've already given you transition words. You have a whole list, and there's a link on the website, so you can just look up things that are related to difference, like whereas and however, and of course everybody's favorite. But although in some cases it's not. Now, there's a bunch of examples. However, whereas, but, and although being the most common ones. They compare seasons in the chapter. They compare college and high school, I believe. Yeah, college and high school. They compare seasons, summer and winter. There's some issues with every paragraph, as I said, but they're generally just going for some typical, descriptions and comparisons. So London and Sydney, two cities. All right, these things have general characteristics that are similar but specific differences, as I said. So let me illustrate one more thing to you before we call it a day or an evening. Composition 1, differences. One of the main things that we need to talk about when we're dealing with it, as I said, is there's sort of a tendency, if you're going to be, I would say that you have to make a choice structurally. You have to choose a structure, always an organization plan for your writing. And if you're going to emphasize that there's sort of an equality and some advantages and disadvantages for both sides, that maybe that would lend itself, and the book doesn't say this is my personal opinion, that it would lend itself towards this structure called point by point. Whereas you take two things, and we'll do countries just for fun, because I'm Canadian and I have many, many friends that are American. Yeah, my Canadian friends too. Some people love America, some people don't. But in generally, we love it. But we do compare what it would be like to live in America versus Canada. And there's some clear advantages, but I have no desire to live in America, because the most important thing for me is to be honest, the healthcare thing is terrifying to me, that I wouldn't somehow, if I had problems, that I wouldn't be taken care of. But since I'm a Canadian citizen, and I live in Korea actually, as you know, that the insurance program covers me in Korea, and if I was home in Canada, we have universal health care, so no matter how sick I get, and how poor or how terrible my life is, or any of my family, or anybody I know, the country will take care of us. That's the most important thing to me. Canadians complain all the time about how long they have to wait, but waiting is better than not getting treated. There's no comparison. It's like, would you like to wait 3 hours, or would you like to not be able to go to the hospital because it's too expensive? Most of my American friends agree. So that's why I would give the advantage to living in Canada personally, just because of that. But overall, America has so many great advantages that if I was a different person, I would make a completely different judgment. But that's just my criteria, right? So Canada versus America, point by point would be my choice, because you can show clearly that in general, America has the advantage, right? In most categories, I chose economics, economy, healthcare, and geography, right? Let's just go through this very quickly. Economically, no contest. That's why Canadians move to the United States. If you get a great job, if you're an actor or you're an athlete or you're a business person or you're a doctor and you want to make a lot of money, and then you don't have to worry about healthcare, you move to the United States because you're rich. It's a great country to live if you're rich. So no contest. The American economy is 10 times, more like 15 times. In fact, the economy of California itself is bigger than the Canadian economy. So you win, America. So first point goes to America. Second, healthcare. Now, I've made a terrible choice here because I shouldn't make a sandwich. If I'm going to personally, now I'm going to just say I'm American, okay? So if I want America to win, I'm going to put healthcare in the middle. If I'm going to try and be persuasive and say that, you know, the private healthcare system has its merits, but clearly like for example, speed, right? If you have insurance in America, you have good quality doctors, you have health access, then it's good. But if you're one of the people who is not privileged to have insurance, which there are tens of millions of them, then you're out of luck. But maybe I won't focus on that. I'll just say, okay, Canada has a good healthcare system, it's universal and so on, but there are drawbacks to it. For example, long waits and you know, less specialization and I don't know, medical research and private funding. You can make some arguments in certain aspects that the American healthcare system has its merits, right? So I would put that, if I was making the argument that America has more advantages, I would certainly put the healthcare in the middle, because I want to emphasize economy is better in America at the beginning, and then when I get to geography, I can easily make the point, Canadian winters are terrible. Why do Canadians go to Florida and the Carolinas and California? If you have enough money to afford that, they're called snowbirds. Retired Canadians, they don't like the winter. I love winter, but maybe when I'm old I won't. So they leave for a couple months and they enjoy the beautiful weather, winter weather, which is quite mild and comfortable and warm, down near the Gulf of Mexico, wherever the place may be in the southern United States. That's clearly an indication that many Canadians consider the geography of the United States to be better. Also, Canada is a huge country. It's actually bigger in size, so I could make that argument, but most of it is really rocky and empty and undeveloped, so most Canadians live near the border. I think it's around 90% of us live within 150 miles or 200 kilometers of the border of the United States. So we're all huddled down in the south part of the whole geography. So 95% of Canada is actually has very low density population, because most of the people live in the city centers that are farther south, which means that most of Canada is empty. So it's beautiful and it's great and it's natural and it has lots of resources, which is also good. However, the United States has all that stuff too, but they also have, you know, they have Alaska and they have Hawaii and they have the Rocky Mountains and they have the East Coast and they have the Appalachians and they have Florida and they have Texas and they have the Grand Canyon and so on and so on. The diversity of the United States is second to none. No country in the world has as much geographical diversity as the United States, because it covers the length, the width and the breadth and the distance between the north end of Alaska down to Guam, for example, is enormous. Russia is a bigger country too, but it doesn't have the ecological and geographical diversity that the United States does. So they win at that too. So we'll say, this is my paragraph or my essay. I'm going to talk about the economy, America's advantage, slight advantage for the Canadians in the middle, and then advantage for the Americans again in the geography. So at the end I conclude that America has the advantage in terms of its attractiveness in these three categories, which I would consider the most important. I'm not necessarily choosing them, but that's the way you can approach it if you want to make a strong argument. So that is how you do point by point. Otherwise, if you're not going to try and be more objective, right, in your analysis of it, then you might give, like I said, if I'm an American and I just want to say all the advantages are on the American side, it would be perhaps better just for me to say, okay, this is a Canadian situation in terms of economy, healthcare, and geography. And they have these good things and everything, but America's better because of this aspects of its economy, healthcare, and geography. So my conclusion is advantages in all three categories go to America. I'm not saying that's what I believe because I'm a proud Canadian, but I'm willing to admit the advantages of America. I've been to America many times for those exact reasons, because there's certain things about America that are great, and Canadians know that. if I wanted to maybe not discuss the healthcare issue, because it is a serious thing and one of the things that I think is in favor of Canada, then another option, of course, is to change my choices and just yank out the healthcare topic and throw in sports. America's sports heaven. That's why all the best athletes in Canada go there, to make more money and to be more popular and to be more competitive. There's three right there. It's not hard for me to imagine that being the case, because if I was good at sports, that's where I would go. And Koreans, you won't know that too. If you were really good at baseball, would you play in Korea? No. The best Korean baseball players play in the MLB, because that's where the best competition is. That's where you become internationally famous. It's the origin of baseball, and tons of money. We all know that. You've probably seen the Korean guys who play baseball. You've seen their houses. They're ridiculously wealthy. Liu Hyunjin doesn't live in a small house. He has an enormous house in a beautiful place. So this is how you form this argument when you're comparing things. I can go on. There's other aspects that we can discuss and more examples that I can give, but I think the 30-minute mark is a pretty good place to stop for any lecture that's online. I've started to learn this. Some of them have dragged on longer, but I try to explain things as carefully as possible. So again, there's going to be things uploaded on the website, so please pay attention this week because it's very important. We have 2 weeks left in the class. Next week is exam review. The week after that, next week is exam review, and you have to hand in your graded assignment. The following week, we have the exam, which you need to be on campus, in person for, okay? If you have some issue with that, June 11th, 4 p.m., College of Humanities arrangement, then the sooner you let me know, the better, okay? And we'll attempt to deal with that if there's some issue. Okay, thank you very much. This is your last content lecture. We have made it pretty much through the whole class. This is, in fact, the last content lecture for any of the classes. So it's all exam review and exams from here on in. Thank you for staying with me and understanding how difficult it has been to adapt to this semester. Freshmen, I understand how you feel. I'll see you in the exam in person, and I won't be able to probably shake your hand, but it'll give me a lot of satisfaction to see you in person and to smile and say hello to you. So I look forward to that. Thank you for listening, and have a good night.